You probably think something's wrong right now. Your emotions are all over the place. Your sleep has been disturbed. People you thought were solid suddenly disappeared. And no matter how much you try to ground yourself, it feels like the ground keeps shifting under your feet. But what if I told you this isn't the breakdown, it's the blessing? What if I told you that the very chaos you're feeling is evidence that you're aligning with something greater than you can currently see? You see, most people expect blessings to feel like peace, like ease, like beauty. And yes, sometimes they do. But more often than not, blessings arrive through disruption, through a complete rearranging of the life you thought you needed, so that the life that's meant for you can take root. When you're on the edge of a divine breakthrough, the enemy won't just sit back and watch. Resistance rises, doubt creeps in, fear shows up dressed like logic, and suddenly what used to make sense starts falling apart. Not because you've done something wrong, but because you're finally doing something right. Ascension, true elevation, creates spiritual attention, and with that attention comes interference. This is why so many solo spiritual seekers feel under attack the deeper they go. You're not crazy, you're not cursed, you're not broken. You're being prepared. There's a reason your relationships are shifting. There's a reason certain friends can't seem to stay close anymore. There's a reason your mind has been unusually foggy, or your body suddenly drained for no medical reason. It's not just life. It's not coincidence. It's recalibration, a divine restructuring of what you thought was stable in order to make room for what's actually aligned. The universe has a very specific way of making space for blessing. It strips away what no longer fits. It interrupts routines that were built on survival. It closes doors you would have kept open forever, not to punish you, but to protect you from something your spirit already outgrew. And if you've been walking this path alone, you've likely felt the pressure even more intensely, because when you're awakening, truly awakening, you become a signal in the spirit, a light tower, and that light doesn't just attract clarity, it also reveals shadows. That's why the spiritual warfare has increased. That's why the anxiety shows up right after a moment of peace. That's why you feel like crying for no reason at all. Because your soul is clearing space, your spirit is leveling up, and every old version of you that cannot survive in the next chapter has to be removed, not gently but completely. You may have been told that struggle is a sign you've strayed from your path, but more often than not, it's a sign you're finally on it. You're not being punished, you're being promoted. You're not falling apart, you're falling into alignment. But here's what you have to understand. If you don't recognize what's happening for what it is, you might mistake your blessing for a burden. You might abort a breakthrough because it doesn't look like peace yet. And that's exactly how the enemy wins, by confusing the discomfort of growth with the pain of failure. So I want you to listen closely. There are signs, real, energetic, spiritual signs, that something divine has already been released into your life, that the universe is actively preparing you for a blessing beyond your current understanding. But those signs rarely show up as soft whispers or gentle nudges. They come through interruption, through the unexpected, through the unraveling of what no longer serves your spirit. And if you're not careful, you'll pray for deliverance from the very thing that was designed to deliver you. So this is your moment. This is your confirmation. That strange fatigue, that inner unrest, that pattern of everything going wrong at once, it's not sabotage. It's spiritual shedding. It's the old being stripped so the new can be sustained. And the sooner you see it for what it is, the sooner you regain your authority in the middle of it. Because this isn't just happening to you, it's happening for you. And if you can stand in it, if you can hold your ground, speak truth over the noise, and declare peace over the storm, what's on the other side will not only bless you, it will elevate you. So breathe. You're not crazy. You're not behind. You're not broken. You're being blessed right now. Even in this, especially in this, because this moment, this fire, this friction, this fatigue, is the spiritual contraction before your next rebirth. And once you know that, everything changes. You may be wondering why the people you once laughed with, called daily, or leaned on emotionally have suddenly vanished. You didn't argue. You didn't betray them. Nothing happened on the surface, but somehow they're just gone. The calls stopped, the texts dried up, the energy shifted, and now you're sitting in silence wondering what you did wrong. But here's the truth the world rarely tells you. You didn't do anything wrong. You're being set apart. Isolation isn't always a punishment. Sometimes it's divine protection. When your spirit begins to elevate, your vibration changes. The law of vibration tells us that everything in this universe is energy, moving at different frequencies. And when your frequency begins to rise, when your thoughts become clearer, your heart becomes softer, your soul becomes aligned with truth, it automatically creates an energetic shift. You no longer match what once surrounded you. And because energy seeks resonance, anything or anyone that no longer aligns with your new vibration will start to fall away, not because they hate you, not because you're unworthy, but because they can't stay connected to the version of you that no longer exists. That sudden distance, that ghosting, that weird tension with no explanation, it's not a rejection, it's a redirection. The universe, God, is clearing your space of energetic interference, making room, creating silence, because the next version of you requires fewer distractions and deeper clarity. Think of it like tuning an instrument. When the string tightens, it rises in pitch, but it also becomes more sensitive. The same happens to you. As your spirit sharpens, your tolerance for noise, emotional, mental, spiritual, decreases. And so the universe responds by stripping away what dulls your frequency. It's why Jesus often retreated to pray alone, why prophets in Scripture were pulled into wilderness seasons. Luke 5:16 says, "But Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed." Those lonely places weren't empty, they were sacred. They weren't devoid of people, they were full of God. And that's exactly where you are now. The people pulling away are not the loss, they're the lesson. They served a version of you that needed companionship, distraction, affirmation. But now, your soul is craving something deeper. Not noise, not crowds, but connection. To source, to purpose, to divine instruction. And sometimes, the only way for you to truly hear is to be removed from every voice that's not God's. That feeling of being cut off, it's uncomfortable. It can trigger abandonment wounds, it can make you question your value. But I want you to understand this deeply. Sometimes the silence is an answer. Sometimes the loneliness is the first sign that you're being called higher. Because certain blessings require preparation. Certain instructions can only be whispered in sacred space, and certain connections must be paused, not because they were bad, but because they were blocking the next layer of your evolution. Think about it. How often do we cling to comfort at the expense of our calling? We stay in conversations that drain us. We accommodate relationships that no longer challenge us. We keep showing up for dynamics that only serve our survival, not our growth. So when God starts clearing the table, it's not cruelty, it's clarity. And you might be thinking, but I miss them. Of course you do. You're human. Connection is beautiful, but it's only beautiful when it's aligned. If someone was only in your life to mirror your wounds, once the healing starts, the mirror shatters. And that's what this season is about. Shattering mirrors that reflected who you were, so you can finally see who you are becoming. You're not just being abandoned, you're being reintroduced to your own voice, to your own rhythm, to your own connection with the divine. The discomfort of solitude is where your discernment sharpens, it's where your authority awakens, it's where you realize that not everyone who started with you is meant to walk with you into the next phase. And that's not betrayal. That's divine boundary. So instead of asking, why did they leave? Try asking, what is this space making room for? What is this silence preparing you to hear? What have you been too distracted to notice? Because here's the secret. Some blessings are too heavy to be carried in crowded rooms. Some instructions are too sacred to be spoken over noise. Some elevations are too powerful to be witnessed by those who still see you as small. That's why you've been pulled back. Not to be punished, but to be prepared. Prepared to walk differently, think differently, love differently. Prepared to operate from overflow, not emptiness. Prepared to lead from a place of clarity, not confusion. This season of isolation isn't your ending. It's your initiation. It's the universe's way of saying, it's time to upgrade. And if you can sit with the silence, if you can trust that the distance is divine, you'll begin to see what this moment is really made of. You'll notice how much more clearly you hear your intuition. You'll realize how much peace you actually feel when you're not chasing connection. You'll discover parts of yourself you'd forgotten beneath the noise of others' expectations. You'll stop longing for who left and start listening for who's coming. Because when God clears space, He always fills it. But He fills it with alignment, with people who speak your new language, with partners who see your vision, with communities who pray with you, not just party with you. But you have to trust the pullback. You have to believe that the silence is sacred. You have to remember that spiritual isolation is not the absence of connection. It's the presence of divine refinement. So if your phone is quiet, if your weekends are still, if your inbox is empty and your circle has shrunk, you're not losing, you're leveling up. You're not being punished, you're being positioned. You're not being forgotten, you're being called. So lean into the quiet, bless the absence. And remember, when everyone pulls away, it's because heaven is pulling you closer. You might not be able to explain it, but lately the emotions have been coming in waves. 1 minute you're calm, maybe even optimistic, and the next you're drowning in anxiety. Or maybe you find yourself suddenly crying over something that wouldn't have moved you before. Mood swings, restlessness, grief that doesn't seem to belong to anything specific. It hits out of nowhere, and it hits hard. This isn't a breakdown, it's a purge. When your spirit starts ascending, your body and emotions begin to release anything that doesn't match your new vibration. You're not just feeling emotional, you're clearing density. You're shedding every thought, feeling, memory, and belief that cannot survive in the higher version of you. And this isn't something you control, it's something your soul initiates. You see, for years, maybe decades, you've stored emotions that were never fully processed. Grief was pushed down, rage was silenced, shame was hidden. You coped, adapted, moved on, but the energy of those experiences never left. They stayed stored in your nervous system, buried in your subconscious, clinging to your energetic field like static. And now that you've said yes to awakening, your system is saying, it's time to let it go. This is why the tears come unexpectedly, why you feel exhausted for no reason, why anxiety flares without a clear threat. It's not that something is wrong, it's that something is being released. Spiritual elevation isn't just about gaining clarity or peace. Before the peace comes the purge, before the stillness, the storm. Not because you're broken, but because you're being emptied of everything that kept you from remembering your wholeness. And that process can feel like emotional chaos. But here's the shift. Instead of fighting it, what if you honored it? What if instead of saying, what's wrong with me, you said, what's leaving me? What if instead of resisting the sadness, you allowed it to wash over you and cleanse what you didn't even know was stuck? Because not every emotion needs to be solved. Some just need to be felt. You're not regressing, you're detoxing. Just like a body releases toxins during a fast, your spirit releases emotional residue when it's entering a new frequency. And just like physical detox can cause fatigue or sickness, spiritual detox can cause sudden sadness, moodiness, or even unexplained joy. It's all part of the realignment. But let's get practical. What can you do when these emotional storms hit? First, breathe. Deep, intentional breathing. Inhale through the nose, hold for a few seconds, exhale slowly through the mouth. Not just once, over and over. It signals your nervous system that you are safe, even in the middle of the storm. Second, ground yourself. Put your bare feet on the earth if you can, touch something real, speak something true. Repeat, I am safe, I am supported. This feeling is not forever. Third, don't isolate your emotions in silence. Journal them, speak them, cry them out. Move your body, sound out your breath. Let the emotion move, because energy that's in motion can't stay stuck. This is a storm, but storms aren't random. They have purpose. They clear the air, they break the heat, they water the soil so something new can grow. Your soul isn't trying to destroy you, it's trying to free you, and freedom rarely feels peaceful in the beginning, because we get used to our emotional patterns. We identify with them. We find safety in our sadness, our anxiety, even our hopelessness. But the universe loves you too much to let you stay there, and so it turns up the light. It calls your vibration higher, and every emotion that can't survive in that light comes up to be released. Think of it like this. Imagine your system as a glass of murky water. You want clarity. You want peace. But if you keep pouring clean water into the glass, eventually all the murk has to rise and spill out. That's what these emotions are. They're the murk coming to the surface as your soul is being filled with light. And yes, it can be overwhelming. But you're not meant to carry it forever. The tears that come for no reason, there for every time you held it together when you should have let yourself break. The sudden anger, it's every moment you were silenced, dismissed, or forced to suppress what you really felt. The fear, it's not a prophecy, it's a program, leaving your system as you awaken to a deeper truth. You are safe now. And that's something most people don't tell you about ascension. It doesn't always feel like rising, sometimes it feels like falling apart. But every time you release what no longer serves you, you make room for what will. Scripture affirms this too. Psalm 35 says, "Weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. And what is morning but the return of light? Your joy isn't gone, it's waiting beneath the rubble. You're not depressed. You're being reset. And it's okay to feel it all. Every wave, every ache, every confusing, overwhelming emotion. Feel it fully, and then let it go. Because this is how healing happens. Not in perfect logic, but in raw, holy surrender. So next time you feel the sadness coming on like a storm, don't run. Sit with it. Place your hand on your heart and whisper, "Whatever this is, I allow it to move through me. I don't need to control it, I only need to witness it. And as it rises, it releases, and as it releases, I heal." Because the truth is, you're not being punished, you're being purified. Your vibration is making space for the blessing, and that blessing requires a vessel that is light, not heavy with past pain, not burdened by shame, not distracted by anxiety, but open, soft, aligned. So when the tears come, let them. When the mood swings hit, breathe through them. When the heaviness lands, don't carry it. Feel it, then let it pass. Because this storm isn't forever, but your healing, that's eternal. You're lying in bed, eyes wide open. You've done everything right. You've limited your screen time, you've turned off the lights, you've even tried deep breathing or meditation, but your mind won't stop racing. And just when you think you've finally drifted off, you're jolted awake. 2:57 a.m. E, 3:11 a.m. E, 3:33 a.m. E. Night after night, the same pattern. And if you're lucky enough to dream, they've been intense lately. Symbolic, emotional, maybe even frightening. Something's happening, but you can't quite explain what. This isn't just insomnia, it's spiritual activation. When you're approaching a breakthrough, when your spirit is elevating, your entire energy field shifts. That shift doesn't stop just because the sun goes down. In fact, the veil between dimensions, the physical and the spiritual, becomes thinner at night. And during these late hours, when the world quiets, your soul gets loud. This is when revelation comes. It's why Scripture often tells us that God spoke to prophets in dreams, in visions, in the stillness of night. Job 33:15-16 says, "In a dream, in a vision of the night, when deep sleep falls upon men, while slumbering on their beds, then he opens the ears of men and seals their instruction." You're not restless because something is wrong. You're restless because something sacred is being delivered. When the spirit realm moves, your body feels it first. That heaviness in your chest, that pressure behind your eyes, that sense that something unseen is trying to get your attention. It's not always dramatic, but it's real. Your system is sensitive now, your spiritual antennas are tuned in, and in that still, quiet space between sleep and waking, you're receiving divine instruction, whether you consciously remember it or not. Waking up at the same hour night after night isn't random. Many spiritual traditions and even some branches of energy medicine believe that 3 a.m. is the witching hour, or more accurately, the sacred hour. A window where spiritual traffic increases, where energy is more fluid, where divine communication becomes easier to access. So if you've been waking at 3 a.m., it may not be a sleep disorder. It may be a spiritual download. Your guides, your angels, or even your higher self may be whispering instructions, revelations, or warnings. It's not always meant to be comfortable, but it is always meant to be transformational. You might ask, then why does it feel so disruptive? Because elevation interrupts routine. Just like a storm breaks the stillness before the sky clears, your spirit may feel shaken so that it can awaken. And sometimes that means your sleep takes a hit. Not as punishment, but as a spiritual invitation. So what can you do with this? First, stop fearing it. The more you resist the interruption, the more friction you create. And the enemy would love for you to see this as anxiety or attack or insomnia, because if you believe it's a problem, you'll miss the message. But if you start to recognize it as communication, you'll start to ask the right questions. What is being revealed to me? What instruction is being sealed while I sleep? What am I waking up to, both literally and spiritually? Second, begin each night with intentional spiritual preparation. Don't just fall into bed hoping for rest. Prepare yourself like a warrior. Before your head hits the pillow, declare over your space. This room is shielded by divine light. Every corner is filled with peace. No energy may enter here that is not from God. I rest under protection. I receive only what serves my highest good. These aren't just words. They're spiritual shield. Proverbs 18:21 reminds us, death and life are in the power of the tongue. That means every word you speak creates energy. And when you use your voice to claim peace and protection, you are fortifying your spiritual perimeter. You can also anoint your space, literally or symbolically. Use oil, water, incense, or simply intention. Walk the room and say aloud, "Only peace dwells here. Only truth is welcome here. Every unclean spirit must go now, in the name of divine light." And don't stop there. Shield your energy field too. Visualize a field of light around your body before you sleep. A bubble, a shield, a golden armor. Whatever image makes you feel safe. See it surrounding you, holding you, deflecting any energy that doesn't belong. This practice isn't just visualization. If your dreams have been strange, symbolic, or even disturbing, write them down. Don't try to analyze them immediately, just record. Dreams are spiritual codes, and the more you honor them, the more clearly they'll speak. Over time, you may notice patterns, messages, or even prophetic guidance emerging. And here's something most people overlook. Sometimes the restlessness isn't from an external source at all. Sometimes it's your own spirit trying to get your attention. Your soul might be nudging you. You're ignoring something important. You're ready for the next level. Stop delaying. It's time to act. Because breakthrough isn't passive. It doesn't just fall into your lap while you sleep. Sometimes it wakes you up and asks, "Are you listening now?" So if the night feels loud, if your mind won't quiet down, If your dreams have turned wild and unpredictable, don't run from it. Lean in, speak to it, pray over it, journal through it. Declare your grounding even when the night feels heavy, because this isn't chaos. It's divine conversation. And what comes after? Peace. Once the message is received, once the alignment is made, rest returns. Not just sleep, but real restoration. The kind that heals you from the inside out. The kind that prepares you for what's next. The kind that reminds you that, yes, the storm woke you up, but it also washed you clean. So tonight, when the clock hits 3 a.m. and your eyes open once again, don't panic. Breathe. Place your hand on your chest and say out loud, I am awake in more ways than one. I am listening. I am covered. I am ready. Because your breakthrough is near, and the night is simply making space for it to arrive. It always seems to hit all at once, doesn't it? The car won't start. Your laptop crashes right before an important meeting. Appointments get cancelled. Plans fall apart. You misplace your keys. Your phone glitches. Traffic delays you just enough to miss something important. And it doesn't just happen once. It feels like a domino effect. Like the universe itself is misaligned with your calendar. But what if I told you this isn't chaos? It's correction. When everything starts going wrong, it's easy to slip into frustration, to believe you're being punished, blocked, or just wildly unlucky. But in spiritual terms, these disruptions are often signals that your life force is being recalibrated, not sabotaged, realigned. Because when your internal state begins to shift, the external world has no choice but to follow, and in that in-between phase, the systems and structures around you, the ones built on old energy, begin to short-circuit. Your schedule, your devices, even your conversations, they start to unravel. Not because you're failing, but because something deeper is adjusting itself in you, and the life you once maintained is no longer sustainable under this new vibration. The universe isn't trying to irritate you. It's trying to interrupt your autopilot. Because what you're about to step into requires a completely different rhythm than the one you've been surviving on. And if you won't slow down by choice, sometimes the universe will slow you down by force, not as punishment, but as preparation. There's something sacred that happens when routines fall apart. You're given a rare opportunity to see what you've been relying on for control. Maybe it's your morning schedule. Maybe it's that one person you always vent to. Maybe it's your ability to plan, fix, manage every detail. And when those crutches get pulled out, when your comfort zones collapse, you're forced to look inward. That's the test, not the inconvenience, but the reaction. Do you spiral? Do you curse the moment? Do you immediately assume that something's working against you? Or do you pause, breathe, and recognize that the collapse of your routine might be the construction site for something better? Because what if the thing that didn't work out was never aligned to begin with? What if that delayed flight protected you from an emotional detour you couldn't have seen coming? What if that technical failure saved you from presenting an idea that wasn't quite ready for the world? What if that cancelled meeting gave you a quiet moment you would have otherwise rushed past, and in that stillness something finally clicked? You see, chaos isn't always a breakdown. Sometimes it's a breakthrough in disguise. But you won't see that if you're too busy reacting. One of the greatest shifts you can make on your spiritual journey is learning to respond rather than react. Because reacting is rooted in fear. It's a knee-jerk impulse to control what feels unstable. But responding? That's power. That's presence. That's you saying, this moment may be uncomfortable, but I refuse to abandon my peace. And that's where the recalibration happens, when you stop interpreting every disruption as an attack and start seeing it as an adjustment. God, the universe, the divine, whatever language speaks to your heart, is not in the business of chaos, but it will allow things to fall apart if those things are keeping you from your purpose. And yes, that includes your carefully laid plans. Because while your routine might serve your productivity, it may not serve your destiny. And sometimes, the very thing you think is going wrong is the thing that's setting you free. So how do you anchor yourself when life starts spinning? First, remind yourself, my peace is not negotiable. Repeat that when the car won't start, when the client cancels, when your laptop freezes, when you oversleep. My peace is not negotiable. Because if you can keep your center while everything else shifts, then the chaos loses its power to control you. Second, speak to the moment, literally. Say out loud, I choose to respond, not react. I release control. I trust that this disruption is aligning me with something greater. You'd be amazed how the energy around you begins to shift when your language shifts first. Third, ask the deeper question, not why is this happening to me, but what is this moment making room for? What am I being taught here? What is being delayed for my protection? What illusion of control is being lovingly dismantled? Because that's really what this is about. Surrender. Letting go of your grip on how things should be so that your life can unfold as it needs to be. Surrender doesn't mean giving up. It means giving in to the greater current that's moving through your life. It means allowing divine timing to replace ego timing. It means trusting that the detour has direction, even when your GPS says otherwise. And look, I get it, it's hard, especially when it feels like you're doing everything you're supposed to do. You're showing up, you're staying present, you're putting in the work. So why does it still feel like everything around you is crumbling? Because construction often looks like destruction at first. When a new building goes up, the first thing they do is knock down the old structure. It's loud, it's messy, it looks like chaos. But underneath that debris is the foundation for something better. So if your routines are falling apart, if your plans are glitching, if everything that was once predictable is now up in the air, maybe you're not being cursed, maybe you're being cleared. So let it fall. Let the meeting get cancelled. Let the schedule get rearranged. Let the interruptions come. Because the moment you stop clinging to the old structure, the new one can finally rise, and when it does, it'll be rooted in something far deeper than control, to be rooted in trust, in presence, in peace that no disruption can touch. Just when you think you've outgrown it, it comes back. That old habit, that one person you swore you'd never text again, that familiar voice in your head whispering, what's the point? It's the craving, the self-doubt, the impulse you thought you had buried, and now without warning it's standing in front of you again, louder, sharper, more convincing than it has been in months, maybe years. This isn't failure. This isn't regression. This is the final test before elevation. You see, when you're on the edge of breakthrough, your energetic system undergoes a kind of retesting. It's not to punish you. It's to prove to you that the healing has worked. But before your transformation is complete, the old version of you will rise up for one last attempt to reclaim your attention. Why? Because that version knows it's being evicted, and anything that's losing power will scream the loudest before it dies. This is spiritual biology, energetic law. The ego, the flesh, the wounded parts of you. They don't just disappear because you've decided to grow. They ask for one more conversation, one more indulgence, one more moment of your attention. They try to bargain with you, and if you're not careful, you'll confuse this resurgence with relapse. But it's not a setback. It's a sign that you've become too expansive for your former cage, and the walls are pushing back before they collapse for good. So the question becomes, will you believe the lie that this is who you still are? Or will you recognize that what's showing up is only doing so because it no longer has a place in your vibration? Temptation often arrives disguised as comfort. It doesn't walk in saying, I'm here to destroy your progress. No. It whispers, this will make you feel better, just once. No one will know. You deserve this. That text from the ex, that craving for the substance, that scrolling until 2 a.m., that need to pick a fight just to feel something real. These aren't random. They're energetic attempts to pull you back into patterns that were designed to keep you small. But you've changed, haven't you? And this is the test, not just to resist, but to remember who you are now. Because the moment you start viewing temptation as a battle between good and bad, you're already losing. This isn't about morality, it's about identity. You are not who you were. And when the old you resurfaces, it's not an invitation, it's a reflection. The clearer your light becomes, the more obvious the shadows appear. So when that old voice whispers again, when that old pain feels familiar, when that old version of you begs to come home, you don't fight it in panic, you face it in truth. You look it in the eye and say, "Thank you for what you taught me, but I no longer live there." That's how warriors walk through temptation. Not with fear, but with clarity. Because clarity doesn't mean you'll never feel tempted. It means you recognize temptation for what it is, a test of alignment. And the truth is, your healing isn't proven by how loudly the old voice screams, but by how calmly you choose not to obey it. Think of it like a video game. Right before you reach the next level, what happens? You face the hardest boss yet. Everything you've learned is put to the test. Your skill, your focus, your patience. It's not a glitch. It's part of the design. That's exactly what's happening now. The old energy is presenting itself one last time, not to drag you back, but to offer you a moment of mastery. So when that urge shows up again, when that bad decision feels oddly tempting, when your thoughts try to spiral into fear, shame, or apathy, you pause, you breathe, and you say, "This is just the test. And I am not the person I used to be." Because walking through temptation isn't about proving your worth. It's about affirming your awareness. You don't have to wrestle every thought. You don't have to panic over every urge. You simply have to remember your power. That's the posture of a spiritual warrior. And if you do stumble, if you do say yes to something you know is misaligned, you don't collapse in shame. You reset in grace. Because shame is a tactic of the enemy. But conviction is divine. Conviction says, "This wasn't aligned, but you're still worthy, now rise." Again, wiser. The difference between the old you and the new you isn't that you'll never fall again. It's that you'll rise faster, with more compassion, with more truth, with more understanding that your path isn't defined by perfection, but by presence. And here's something no one tells you. Sometimes the return of old patterns means you're close, really close. That promotion, that shift, that relationship, that revelation, it's right around the corner. And the enemy, the ego, the unhealed shadow, it senses it, and it throws everything it can to distract you, right before the breakthrough. So when the storm gets louder, rejoice. It means the blessing is near. When the temptation gets heavier, celebrate. It means your roots are deeper. When the old voices rise up, stand tall. It means your new identity is taking hold. And it's because you are no longer walking as the victim of your past. You're walking in victory. And every time you choose awareness over reaction, truth over programming, peace over chaos, you anchor yourself even deeper into that victory. You're not who you used to be, not even close. So the next time temptation knocks, the next time your thoughts try to drag you back to old patterns, don't run. Stand still, look it in the eye, and with a calm, clear heart say, "I remember that version of me. I honor their pain, but I do not live there anymore." Because you don't. Not now, not ever again. It starts quietly, but the discomfort builds quickly. The bills feel heavier. Payments are delayed, clients pull back, opportunities seem to vanish, and the numbers in your bank account don't reflect the energy you've been pouring out. You try to stay calm, to trust the process, but it feels like the provision is drying up. You begin to wonder if you're doing something wrong, if you've fallen out of favor, if maybe the flow of abundance has left you behind. But here's what your soul already knows. This isn't punishment, it's realignment. When your spiritual vibration rises, your relationship with money, like everything else, must evolve. The tightening you're experiencing is not about lack, it's about clarity. It's about the universe reconfiguring how you receive, how you give, and how you manage the energy of provision itself. Because money is energy. And when you shift energetically, your abundance source shifts too. The channels that once brought provision may begin to dry up, not because provision is leaving, but because you're being redirected toward purpose-driven flow. Income rooted in alignment, not survival. Prosperity that feeds your mission, not just who you're becoming, not who you used to be. This is why the discomfort hits when it does. It's an invitation to examine your patterns, your priorities, and your internal beliefs around wealth. The slowdown isn't a punishment. It's a pause, designed to help you see what's been running in the background of your financial story. What do you believe about money? Do you trust it will show up? Do you feel guilty when you receive? Do you overspend to soothe discomfort? Do you undercharge because you're afraid to claim your worth? These moments of financial friction bring all of it to the surface, not to shame you, but to liberate you from scarcity-based conditioning that's no longer compatible with your evolution. Because if you're going to walk in divine purpose, you cannot keep operating in survival mode. You cannot continue the hustle that depletes your spirit. You cannot rely on sources that no longer reflect your soul's expansion. So when the flow tightens, you're being called to examine, not panic. This is your opportunity to reset your relationship with money, to stop seeing it as a reward for performance and start viewing it as a reflection of alignment, to stop chasing it and start magnetizing it. How? First, bring awareness to your current money habits, not just what you spend, but why you spend. Not just how much you give, but how you give. Do you give from obligation or from overflow? Do you receive with openness or with guilt? Do you ask for what you need, or do you silently hope others will just know? Money responds to energetic integrity. It flows where it's honored. It grows where it's stewarded. It multiplies where it's aligned. So let this season be one of sacred audit. Look at where you've been leaking energy. Subscriptions you no longer use. Meals bought out of boredom. Gifts given from guilt instead of joy. Investments made from fear rather than faith. None of this is about shame. It's about sovereignty. You are reclaiming your role as the energetic manager of your provision. And part of that reclamation requires you to check your receiving pattern. Because many of us are great at giving but deeply resistant to receiving. We feel more spiritual when we sacrifice. We think lack equals humility. We believe accepting help makes us weak. And that belief alone is enough to block the blessing. So here's your practice. Start by saying this out loud. Every day, I am open to receive. I am worthy of divine provision. I welcome money that flows in alignment with my soul's purpose. I trust that my needs are always met in overflow. Write it down, repeat it, feel it in your body. And then, journal the following prompts. What are my earliest memories of money, and how do they still live in my body? Where do I feel guilt or fear when it comes to receiving support? How would I show up if I fully trusted that provision was always flowing toward me? What patterns am I ready to release in my relationship with abundance? These reflections aren't about manifesting more dollars immediately. They're about shifting the frequency you live in. And when you shift that frequency, the flow returns, but it may come through new channels. So stay open. Don't expect money to come the way it always has. A job offer may disappear only to reveal a passion project that brings more income and joy. A cancelled client may create space for a divine connection you weren't even expecting. Provision isn't gone, it's just moving differently now. Scripture echoes this shift too. Deuteronomy 8:18 reminds us, "But remember the Lord your God, for it is He who gives you the ability to produce wealth." Not man, not clients, not algorithms, but God, Spirit, the universe, your source. And source is never empty. So if it feels like the money has slowed, let that slowness lead you to stillness. Let the discomfort guide you inward. Let the resistance uncover what needs to be rewired, because you are not in lack, you are in transition. And the moment you stop clinging to the old way money used to show up, you'll start making room for how it's meant to show up now, with ease, with flow, with alignment. So breathe, review, recommit, and then declare, my provision is not shrinking, it is shifting. I welcome this recalibration. I trust the pause, I honor the lesson, and I open myself fully to the new streams that are already flowing toward me. Because they are, even now, even here, especially here. You glance at the clock, again, and there it is, 11:11. You brush it off as coincidence until it happens the next day. Then you start seeing 222 on receipts, 333 on license plates. Someone mentions a name you were just thinking about. A song plays with lyrics that echo your exact thoughts. And now it's happening so often, you can't unsee it. At first it's subtle, then it's undeniable. But you're left wondering, what does it all mean? These aren't random, they're divine codes, and if you've been noticing repeated numbers, strange coincidences, or signs that feel too personal to ignore, you're not imagining things, you're aligned. Synchronicities are the universe's way of confirming that you are on a spiritual frequency high enough to receive guidance in real time. Think of them as breadcrumbs from the divine. Nudges, echoes, winks from spirit that say, yes, this is the way, keep going. And it often starts when life feels chaotic. That's the paradox. Just when everything seems to be unraveling, the signs show up with more frequency and more precision. Not because life is out of control, but because you're being pulled into alignment. You're waking up, you're tuning in, and your spiritual GPS has been activated. Numbers carry energy. That's the essence of spiritual numerology. Every repeating sequence you see has a vibrational frequency tied to a specific form of guidance or awakening. 111 often signals alignment of thought and the power of intention. 222 reflects balance and harmony, especially in relationships. 333 is the reminder of divine support and protection, the presence of higher beings surrounding you. 444 often arrives when you're building something solid, and 555 shows up during moments of intense change and transformation. These aren't just numbers, they're spiritual timestamps, messages stamped across your day to remind you that even in the discomfort you are seen. So when you see these patterns, don't ignore them. Respond. When 1111 flashes across your screen, pause, breathe, whisper your intention, say, I am open, I am aligned, I receive. These moments aren't just signs, they're portals, glimpses into the unseen guidance that's trying to reach you. You may also notice synchronicities through names. You think of someone and they call. You mention an obscure place and a stranger brings it up moments later. You dream of someone you haven't spoken to in years and the next day they appear on your timeline. This is spiritual conversation. It's how the universe speaks when your spirit is quiet enough to hear. It's not always meant to be logical, but it is meant to be trustworthy, and sometimes synchronicity becomes more than just a sign. It becomes a doorway to the miraculous. There are stories upon stories of people following these signs to life-changing outcomes. Someone sees 444 every day, decides to leave a toxic job, and days later receives an unexpected offer that aligns with their soul. Another keeps hearing the name of a city they've never visited, books a spontaneous trip, and meets their future spouse. It doesn't have to make sense in the moment, it just has to resonate. Because resonance is the language of alignment. You may even notice synchronicities around pain, thinking of someone right before learning they've passed, seeing a number that marked a trauma, but this time it feels like a message of closure. These moments aren't there to hurt you, they're there to heal you, to remind you that time isn't linear, that spirit is always speaking, and that nothing in your life is random. So how do you work with these signs instead of brushing them off? Start tracking them. Keep a synchronicity journal. Every time you see a repeating number, a name, a lyric, a symbol that feels important, write it down. Note what you were thinking about at that moment, what decision you were facing, what emotion was rising. Over time, you'll begin to see patterns. You'll start to notice how 333 shows up when you're doubting yourself, how 555 comes right before a big shift, how the same song seems to play every time you're about to receive news. This is not superstition, it's spiritual awareness. It's you learning to read the energy of your life. You can also use these moments as cues to pause and reconnect. Turn the numbers into anchors. Let 111 be a breath. Let 222 be a prayer. Let 444 be a declaration. Turn every sign into a ritual. And suddenly, your entire day becomes a conversation with the divine. That's the secret. The signs were never meant to overwhelm you. They were meant to reassure you. To say yes, even now, you are guided. Even here, you are seen. Even in the confusion, you are not alone. You don't need to decode every sign perfectly. Sometimes the meaning is personal, and sometimes it's simply a reminder that you're connected to something greater. The most important part is that you respond, because when you start treating these moments as sacred, your entire reality begins to shift. You move with more intention, you listen with more depth, you speak with more reverence, and life stops feeling like a series of random events and starts feeling like a spiritual masterpiece unfolding one moment at a time. So the next time you see 1111 or feel that nudge in your chest or hear the song that makes your heart skip, don't doubt it. Smile. Thank Spirit and say, "Message received," because it's not coincidence. It's confirmation. You're aligned, even when you don't feel like it. You're connected, even when you feel alone. And you are exactly where you need to be, right on time. Lately, something strange has been happening. You feel things before they happen. You sense when someone's energy has shifted even if they haven't said a word. You get quiet nudges, unexplainable feelings that turn out to be right. But as soon as the clarity hits, the doubt creeps in. You second-guess yourself. You question whether you're overthinking. You wonder if you're just making it all up in your head. This is the paradox of rising intuition. It comes in like a whisper, and just when you're about to trust it, your mind jumps in with logic, fear, or old programming. It's the inner battle between your spiritual sensitivity and your conditioned skepticism. And if you're feeling caught between those two worlds, it doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. It means your gifts are activating. Your intuition is waking up. But like any muscle that's been dormant, it takes time to strengthen. And at first, it's clumsy. You'll get a message, a gut instinct, a flash of knowing, and moments later you'll doubt its accuracy. That's not failure. That's the stretching process, the growing pains of becoming spiritually fluent. The doubt isn't there to stop you. It's there to challenge your trust. Because intuition doesn't get louder to convince you. It gets quieter to train you. Your job isn't to make the signal louder. Your job is to become still enough to hear what's already being whispered. And that requires practice. Stillness, tracking, a willingness to explore the message without needing immediate proof, because intuition is rarely obvious in the moment. It unfolds through hindsight, through resonance, through the clarity that comes when you say, "I knew it, I just didn't trust it." So if your clarity feels shaky, don't give up. Get curious. Start by creating space, literal space, emotional space, internal silence. Turn down the volume of distraction, of urgency, of everyone else's opinion. You cannot hear your inner knowing while you're drowning in outer noise. Even 5 minutes of conscious stillness can shift everything. Close your eyes, place your hand over your heart, and simply ask, "What do I already know that I've been afraid to believe?" That question alone can open the door to your deepest truth. Next, journal. Write without editing. Let the words spill. Ask your higher self, "What do I need to understand right now?" And write whatever flows. Don't stop to judge it. Don't try to make it poetic. Just let the truth pour out. You can also record voice memos. There's something powerful about speaking your intuition out loud. Sometimes you'll say something that surprises even you. Words that didn't come from your mind but from your knowing. These recordings become spiritual breadcrumbs. You can go back and hear what your higher self was trying to say days, weeks, even months earlier. And here's the magic. The more you track your intuition, the more you'll realize how accurate you've been all along. Not always in exact detail, but in energy, in direction, in essence. And when you begin to see that pattern, trust begins to anchor. It's not about being right all the time. It's about recognizing the voice that always speaks from peace. Intuition doesn't rush. It doesn't panic. It doesn't demand attention. That's the voice of fear. That's the voice of programming. But intuition? It's calm, it's still, it's steady. And it knows, even when you don't understand why. So how do you separate real intuition from fear? Check the vibration. Fear feels like contraction. It feels urgent, noisy, reactive. Intuition feels like clarity, even if it doesn't make logical sense. It doesn't demand, it invites, it nudges, it leaves a trail of peace behind, even if it challenges your comfort. So the next time you feel something strong, pause. Ask, does this message make me feel expansive or small? Am I responding to truth or reacting to trauma? Is this coming from peace or from panic? And then trust the answer your body gives you. Because your intuition doesn't just speak in thoughts, it speaks in sensations. A tightening in the stomach, a tingling in the hands, a lightness in your chest. Your body is an antenna, and when you learn to interpret its signals, your entire life becomes a conversation with spirit. But here's the key. Don't wait for perfect confidence to act on your intuition. Confidence comes from acting on it. You'll build trust by taking small steps, by listening even when it's inconvenient, by following the nudge even if it doesn't make sense to anyone else. You'll look back and realize, that whisper saved me. And if you get it wrong sometimes, that's okay. The goal isn't perfection, it's relationship with yourself, with Source, with the voice that has always been trying to guide you. You are not broken because you doubt. You are not weak because you hesitate. You are in training, and every moment of stillness, every journal entry, every voice memo, every tiny act of trust, it's all building your spiritual fluency. So if your intuition has been rising, but your doubt has been chasing right behind it, breathe. You're not losing the signal. You're learning to stay with it, to believe it, to act on it before your mind talks you out of it. And with each choice you become more aligned, more anchored, more aware of the fact that yes, you really do know more than you think, not because you're smarter, but because you're finally listening to the part of you that never lies, your soul. There comes a point in the journey where it just feels too heavy. You've been doing the inner work. You've been praying, meditating, journaling, showing up for yourself. You've been fighting unseen battles, choosing peace when anger would be easier, holding on to faith even when the evidence around you is crumbling. And still, nothing seems to move. No confirmation, no breakthrough, just silence, delay, resistance, and that weight, that ache, that thought you swore you wouldn't have again. What's the point? This is the dark night of the soul. And if you're here, it doesn't mean you're lost. It means you're closer than you think. The dark night isn't punishment, it's purification. It's the spiritual contraction that always precedes the expansion. It's the death of the old self, the old identity, the last layer of illusion before the resurrection. And yes, it hurts. The temptation to quit is loud. The mental fog rolls in. You start comparing, spiraling, isolating. You wonder if you're making it all up, if the healing was even real, if maybe you should just go back to the way things used to be. But listen to me. This is not the end. This is the edge. And the edge is always uncomfortable, because it's where the familiar dies and the miracle begins. Think about every major spiritual breakthrough in history. Before there was resurrection, there was surrender. Before glory, there was the wilderness. Moses was exiled before the Red Sea split. David hid in caves before he wore a crown. Even Jesus, in the garden, prayed, "If this cup can pass from me." The feeling of giving up always arrives just before the power returns, because your spirit is being emptied, not destroyed, cleared, so the new light can rise, so the elevation can take root, so the blessing has space to land. It feels like something is being taken from you, but really, it's what no longer serves you being stripped away. And what's left is a clean slate, a bare soul, a heart ready to receive something truer. And I know it's hard to believe that in the moment, so let me remind you through the stories of those who came before you. There was a woman who had been praying for years to leave a toxic job that crushed her soul. She was days away from quitting her spiritual practice entirely, and then she received a call, an offer from a company she hadn't heard from in months. Her dream role, her dream schedule, and it only came after she hit what she called the breaking point. Another man felt like his prayers were hitting the ceiling. His marriage was failing, his finances were wrecked, and he was convinced God had abandoned him. But he kept whispering truth over himself every morning, even when his voice shook. And just as he considered walking away from everything, a spiritual mentor entered his life and walked him through a healing that not only restored his family, but birthed a ministry. You see, the enemy doesn't fight what isn't valuable, and resistance increases when the shift is right in front of you. That's why the temptation to quit feels so loud right before the door opens. It's the last illusion trying to keep you out of alignment. So what do you do when your spirit wants to rise but your body wants to collapse? You push, not with striving, not with forcing, but with prayer, with declaration, with spiritual defiance. You stand in the middle of the ache and say, "I will not surrender to fear. I will not make permanent decisions based on temporary pain. I may feel weak, but I am not forsaken. I may be tired, but I am still covered. This is not the end of my story." Declare it, even if you don't feel it yet, because your words are seeds, and sometimes they take root in the dark. Scripture reminds us in Galatians 6:9, "Let us not grow weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up." That proper time, it's almost never when you expect, but it's always on time. So pray like this: "Spirit of truth, hold me through this darkness. I can't see the way, but I trust the path. Remove what's not mine, restore what is. Let this night birth something eternal in me. Give me strength, not to escape, but to evolve." And then move. Even if it's slow, take the walk. Drink the water, reach out to someone safe, light a candle, sit in silence. You don't need to fix everything right now. You just need to not collapse. There is a version of you on the other side of this moment that is wiser, stronger, deeper, and more whole than you can even imagine, but you don't become that version by giving up. You become that version by standing in the pain without losing your faith. You don't have to understand the plan. You just have to refuse to bow to fear. Because this breaking point, it's actually a birth canal. You are being pushed into expansion. And yes, it feels like pressure. Yes, it feels like grief. Yes, it feels like you're unraveling. But what if I told you you're not falling apart? You're falling into place. What if this is the very moment heaven holds its breath, watching you hold the line, waiting to flood your life with what you've been prepared for? So take one more breath, whisper one more truth, and walk one more step. Because the night may be long, but the dawn always comes, and when it does, you'll rise with it. Not broken, not defeated, but transformed. If you've made it this far, then somewhere inside you already know the truth. You're not cursed, you're not under attack because you're broken. You're not being forgotten, you're not being punished. You're being prepared. You're being shaped. You're being chosen. Everything you've experienced, the sudden isolation, the emotional storms, the restlessness, the money tightening, the chaos in your routine, the resurfacing of old patterns, the temptation to quit, the overwhelming synchronicities, the heightened intuition mixed with doubt. None of it has been random. These are not signs that something is wrong with you. The pressure you feel is not because you're weak. It's because you're carrying something heavy, something sacred. You're carrying light in a world that thrives in shadow, and when you begin to walk in your truth, when you begin to embody your purpose, when you begin to align with your divine assignment, resistance will rise. Not because you're failing, but because you're finally becoming undeniable. And that's what this whole journey has been about, revealing your strength, refining your gifts, rooting you so deeply in spirit that nothing, no disruption, no delay, no voice of fear can pull you off course, but you have to see it clearly now. That moment you were ghosted, it wasn't rejection, it was redirection. Energetic distractions had to be cleared for clarity to enter. Those emotional breakdowns, they weren't weakness, they were purges, a sacred clearing of old pain to make room for divine frequencies. That restlessness at 3 a.m., that was your soul tuning into the thinning veil, heaven whispering to your spirit in the stillness of night. The broken plans and off-timing, that was recalibration, not a curse, a holy disruption to shake you out of patterns that no longer serve your future. Even the resurfacing of your past self, the temptations, the doubts, the sudden desire to go back to what's comfortable, that wasn't a failure. It was the final test before elevation. You are not being destroyed. You are being reconstructed. And everything that has felt like spiritual warfare has actually been divine preparation. Because you're not being called to survive this next season. You're being called to lead, to stand in your spiritual authority, to stop asking for permission to shine, to walk in such unwavering peace that even the storm bows to your presence. That's who you are. That's who you've always been. And if you're still here, if you haven't given up yet, then that's proof enough that what's ahead is far greater than what you've left behind. So, don't shrink now. Don't let the doubt win now. Don't hand your power back to fear now. This is the moment to rise, to remember your covering, to reclaim your voice, to speak truth over your life even when your circumstances try to lie to you. You're not cursed, you're marked, hand-selected by spirit to carry something rare, a frequency of truth that disrupts darkness, a presence that stirs awakening in others, a calling that can't be copied, because it was coded into your soul before you were born. So yes, the journey has been heavy, but the reward, it's closer than you think. You are about to step into alignment with such force that everything out of harmony with your destiny will fall away, and it won't even hurt. It will free you. But first, you must commit, fully. No more negotiating with fear, no more abandoning yourself to please the world, no more dimming your light to make others comfortable. You are here to shine, and that shine doesn't need permission. So let's seal this moment with truth. Pray with me, declare it out loud. I am not cursed. I am chosen. I was created with purpose. I was called before I was conscious. I release every lie that says I'm not enough. I renounce every pattern rooted in fear, lack, and doubt. I reclaim my authority. I align with divine timing. I welcome sacred provision. I walk in peace. I walk in power. I walk in presence, I walk in purpose, and I trust, deeply, that what's for me is already finding me now. I don't chase, I attract. I don't beg, I embody. I don't fear, I remember. I am protected, I am covered, I am free. In divine truth, so it is. Breathe that in, let your shoulders drop. Let your nervous system recalibrate to the frequency of truth, because your spirit has known all along. This wasn't destruction, it was your emergence. You're not broken. You're not behind. You're becoming. And now that you know, now that you see, there's only one thing left to do. Walk, head high, shoulders back, spirit forward. Walk like someone who knows they are seen. Walk like someone who knows they are supported. Walk like someone who remembers you were never cursed, you were always chosen.